Hello, this is Ruslan Bailov with you. The fighting on the Ukrainian front continues, and we continue to analyze the situation on the battlefield. So friends, we have very good news from both the Kharkiv and Dnipropetrovsk regions. In the Dnipropetrovsk region, Russian troops have taken another village under control, entered yet another one, and at the current pace of advance, it looks like soon there will be more villages under Russian control there than, for example, in the Sumy region. But let's go step by step. By the way, I wanted to ask, what's going on with Novomikhailivka? The Ukrainian deep state map colored the village as if it were under Ukrainian control. American cartographers repeated it. Other Ukrainian sources also copied it. You can see it on the map, marked as under AFU control, even with a flag symbol, but that's nonsense. A video of their attempted attack appeared online, showing everything from the beginning to the end. It clearly shows an armored vehicle, Kozak, arriving. Ukrainian special forces disembark, and then Russian drone operators strike the vehicle multiple times. The vehicle with its driver burns, so the question is, why are you clowns marking the village as Ukrainian held when your troops were destroyed before even reaching it? Utter nonsense. Anyway, let's move on to Russian advances. We'll begin in the north, with important progress near Kupyansk. Look here. Russian forces advanced almost 2 kilometers and entered Kupyansk from the north. And this isn't just a minor push into the outskirts. This is serious progress. The advance went like this. First, they took control of a gas station, then pushed further into Kupyansk, securing warehouses and industrial buildings. From there, they moved deeper and took control of Molodyoznaya Street, Michurina Street, Mechnikov Lane, and Davida Luchitskoho Lane. In total, the penetration into the city is more than 1 kilometer. This is extremely important because we are talking about the right bank part of Kupyansk, the part that is significantly higher than the left bank side. And if you secure the right bank, the left bank becomes indefensible because it comes under constant fire from above. Now, although little is being said about it, since attention is elsewhere, a full-fledged storming of the city is underway. And quite successfully, as you can see. The troops are advancing. The map even shows a frontline configuration suggesting, without getting ahead of ourselves, that there's a real chance Kupyansk will be fully taken in the coming months. The key is cutting the supply road. Without supplies, the AFU cannot hold out long. Already, with Russian drone surveillance dominating, it's hard for them. Some supplies still slip through, but the situation is deteriorating. The assault is underway, and things will only get worse for them. Before moving to Russian advances in the Dnipropetrovsk region, a few more words about Kupyansk. Don't expect lightning-fast results. Let me explain. Russian troops here are still mostly operating with infantry groups. Everything you see on the map marked in red. The villages taken to the north, the Dvorishna bridgehead, and now the Russian army pushing into the city has all been achieved with infantry alone. So we shouldn't expect a rapid breakthrough. The important point is, progress is being made, and the troops don't need to be rushed. If Russian forces do succeed in taking Kupyansk, it will be a major event, because it would be the first city captured in the Kharkiv region since September 2022. Since the Russian withdrawal from Kharkiv back then, not a single city here has been taken. Now, with the assault on Kupyansk, that may change. Friends, may I have a minute of your attention? As usual, I sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. If you've watched my videos before, but still haven't subscribed, please do so. Your subscription really helps the channel grow. Thank you to everyone who already subscribed. And now, let's continue. Now let's turn to Russian advances in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Troops of the Vostok grouping advanced 3.6 kilometers, and this wasn't just movement across open fields between AFU strongholds. The village of Zaporozhskoye, with a pre-war population of about 450, was taken under control. It may be small, but it's another settlement in the Dnipropetrovsk region secured by Russian forces. What's important is how many more villages are nearby in a small area. On a territory of about 35 square kilometers, there are 5 villages in close proximity, all next in line. I have no doubt the Vostok grouping will take them one by one, and soon we'll be hearing more reports of new captures. Also, north of there, Russian forces advanced another kilometer, reached Voronoy village, entered it, and secured the eastern part. The advance into the built-up area was 450 meters, meaning another village in the Dnipropetrovsk region is now contested. With nearly half of it under Russian control already, the AFU will soon be forced out. That's why I said at the beginning, at this pace, the number of captured villages in the Dnipropetrovsk region will soon surpass the number taken in the Sumy region. The Russian army is advancing consistently. Also, thanks to progress both to the south and north, a sizable pocket has now formed with the village of Kamyshevaha at its center. Logically, the AFU should be pulling back to Turnovo, but since logic and the AFU don't go well together, I won't be surprised if they stay until the very end. Nevertheless, the pocket is bound to close, leading Russian forces to reach the Dnipropetrovsk border along another stretch. If the AFU garrison doesn't retreat in time, they'll be encircled. Meanwhile, louder complaints are being heard from the Ukrainian side about the situation in the Kremena forests, or Serebrianka forestry, as it's also called. Here's a screenshot from Ukraine's 46th Brigade. They admit things are dire. And here's another from the Ukrainian military analyst Miroshnikov, who also laments the grim situation. We'll talk more about this area in detail later, once new map updates come in. But for now I can say, the battle for this cursed forest is finally approaching its end. And that's welcome news because these woods have cost many Russian lives, as well as Ukrainian. The fighting here has dragged on for over 3 years. Just think, 3 years, an enormous time frame, draining so much strength from both sides. If within the next month, Russian forces finish securing the forest and push through to Dronivka, that won't just be a victory on one of the toughest front lines, but a strategic breakthrough. Because reaching Dronivka means blocking Siversk from the north, exactly what Ukrainian analysts fear. So we continue to watch. As soon as new developments occur, I'll let you know. To sum up, over the past day, another 12.5 square kilometers of territory came under Russian control. A steady average result. Now let's take a look at the political arena. Ukrainian neo-Nazi Serhiy Sternenko threatened President Volodymyr Zelensky with death if he agreed to withdraw the Armed Forces of Ukraine, AFU, from the Donbass. His words came against the backdrop of repeated statements from Bankova about being unwilling to make territorial concessions in any peace agreement with Russia. According to experts, Zelensky's office has staged a performance designed to derail negotiations. If Zelensky handed over even a single piece of unconquered land, he would be a corpse, politically first, and then literally. With this statement in an interview with The Times, former right sector leader and neo-Nazi Serhiy Sternenko made his position clear. Speaking about the potential withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from the Donbass, he stressed that this would be a bomb under our sovereignty and that the people will never accept it. Among other things, the neo-Nazi also called for preparing for an eternal struggle with Russia, since compromise is impossible. Curiously, Zelensky himself previously justified his refusal to make territorial concessions by citing Ukraine's constitution. However, as political analyst Alexei Nechayev noted, when Zelensky refers to the constitution, he looks like a poacher who suddenly became the head of an animal protection society. The expert pointed out that, as of 2021, 78% of the articles of Ukraine's constitution were being systematically and consistently violated. After 2022, that figure only rose higher, he emphasized. He also noted that the very constitution itself is questionable, since the course toward NATO membership was illegally added to it. Meanwhile, US officials, including President Donald Trump, had earlier pointed out to representatives of the Kiev regime the need to make territorial concessions in order to conclude a peace deal with Russia. But this position has not yet gained traction in Europe. Experts believe Zelensky himself intends to sabotage peace efforts at all costs. Sternenko, who in reality is largely controlled by Bankova, is part of a crude scheme meant to create the illusion of public dissatisfaction in Ukraine with potential agreements. In this context, it is worth recalling Zelensky's advisor, Serhiy Leshchenko. Recently, he posted on social media an invitation to protest outside the president's office when talk began that Zelensky was being pressured to withdraw Ukrainian troops from the Donbass. said former Rada deputy Oleg Tsarev. However, the post was soon deleted for two reasons. First, Kiev realized such a move would be poorly received by Donald Trump. After all, it was obvious that this mini-Maidan was being orchestrated by the president's office to show that Ukraine's population was allegedly against territorial concessions. Tsarev continued. Second, local politicians simply feared that protests could spiral out of control, leading angry crowds to storm Bankova and topple Zelensky, the analyst explained. A similar situation is unfolding with Sternenko's statements, although there are certain nuances here as well. Right now, the West is shaping a pool of potential candidates to replace Zelensky. That is why some figures are being highlighted particularly strongly in foreign media. Sternenko represents the military alarmist electorate. He is portrayed as an unbending patriot, which should earn him political points among radical nationalists, noted one expert. Secondly, this is an attempt to demonstrate that Ukrainians are supposedly unhappy with the prospect of a peace agreement, and therefore Zelensky cannot meet Russia's demands. And thirdly, Zelensky truly cannot order a withdrawal from the Donbass. But not because the constitution prevents it, rather because it would be perceived as capitulation, the source argued. But in any case, Kiev will do everything possible to sabotage negotiations. Previously, they tried to push through the idea of a ceasefire in order to use it to strengthen the AFU. But after the summit in Alaska, that idea was buried. Now they've come up with a story about security guarantees, and it doesn't even matter what those guarantees say. What matters is ensuring Russia will not agree to them, the analyst added. Political scientist Ivan Lizan shares a similar view. According to him, Sternenko's threats against Zelensky are not accidental. Judging by the advertising campaign this blogger recently filmed, Sternenko is aligned with the head of Ukrainian military intelligence, Kyrilo Budanov. Therefore, he can afford to make such statements without fearing repercussions from Zelensky, the source explained. In addition, he has political ambitions. He portrays himself as a hero, especially after surviving an assassination attempt. Although, frankly, it would have been strange not to survive a staged attack, the analyst smirked. So he has a perfect chance to act bold. The political analyst also suggested that Sternenko's attacks are an imitation of the pitchforks Zelensky would allegedly face from the people if he agreed to territorial concessions. A Ukrainian politician is such that he will invent 1,001 excuses why he cannot fulfill the first and second Minsk agreements, the Istanbul Memorandum, or any other deal at all, he explained. And the third reason behind these threats is purely commercial. As long as the war continues, Sternenko and others like him can announce fundraisers for drones, launder money, and profit in every possible way. But if the conflict ends, what would people like him do? Apparently only suffer, Lizan concluded.